Welcome again to another episode of Cloud Unplugged.
What Anthropic realized. They used almost 25,000 accounts and they conducted around 20 million interactions with Claude.
Isn't that called karma? Where you train a model based on every other people's work, but you're not happy that somebody else trains their model on your model that was trained on other people's work. Just so I understand the slight hypocrisy here. The MacBooks, they're going to cost 20% more.
Yeah, John, supply and demand, right? Because the hyperscalers are buying up all this memory.
Welcome again to another episode of Cloud Unplugged. We have two big topics. One big topic, one smaller one. We have Anthropic accusing Alibaba of basically a distillation attack against their model, so reverse engineering what they can work out, how the model was built, what type of features and capabilities it's providing to accelerate their own AI growth. And then we also have the fact that MacBooks just got 20% more expensive because of AI. So if you're out to buy a MacBook, you better go and get a bank loan. So how are things going with the Anthropic story, Salman? What was going on there?
Well, John, here's the question. Why would you want to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to train a model when you could just learn from one that already exists? And that is the question Alibaba asked. And what they did, what Anthropic realized, that between April and June, so I think the timelines are between 22nd of April and 5th of June, Anthropic identified that there's a coordinated campaign by Alibaba's Qwen AI models. You know, you're the Qwen AI models that perhaps you've used or perhaps you like them or not. They used almost 25,000 accounts and they conducted around 20 million interactions with Claude, and we'll come to what an interaction is in a second. The goal was to systematically extract Claude's capabilities.
Wow.
How Claude reasons, how it uses the tools, how it the coding abilities to train their own smaller Qwen model. So this is what Anthropic found out. And what they did was, as soon as they identified, and they called it corporate espionage because it is corporate espionage, what they found out is they went to the US senators, a couple of US senators, and told them about it, that, this is what's happened. And they sent a letter to the Senate Banking Committee. And then 2 days later, once they identified it and sent the letter to the banking committee, you remember when Mythos and Fable got banned from non-US use, that ban got put in place. But the initial thing is
that makes sense.
Alibaba was using these models, the Claude models, to train their own Qwen models. That's the headline story, John. And of course, there's a lot to it than just what's happened. But this is what they found out.
Do you think, because I don't know if you saw, but Anthropic have obviously beaten OpenAI on the market. I think they're OpenAI dropped to 27% of market share for enterprises. But it sounds like maybe because how many subscriptions were they getting from China? So are we saying that basically that 20%, that additional 20% that made them 47% market share was really coming from China, and maybe there is maybe they're on a par. How much were they making money from China? We don't know.
That's right, John. Look, we said that Uber came around and said, well, we're not really seeing a return on investment. Well, Alibaba did. They're training their models based on that. They
got really good ROI. They got the best ROI. Yeah, they got the best ROI out of that.
So, John, it's like if you look at an interaction, is anywhere between 500 to 1,000 tokens, right? Roughly, just talking about roughly 500 to 1,000 tokens. Let's just say 1,000 tokens, and there's about 29 million interactions. So it's about, you can say, between 10 to 20 billion tokens that were used, right? Roughly, it's just rough estimates. That is a reasonable amount of money, maybe in hundreds of thousands of dollars. So perhaps not a lot in the grand scheme of things.
And they were turn it back on. We've got an IPO coming up. Come on, guys. Come on, China. Get some more subscriptions going. We're about to IPO.
But so the thing here is that of course this is not the first time that's happened. They also found out in the past that DeepSeek carried out about 150,000 of these interactions. Moonshot AI, again another model from China, about 3.4 million exchanges. And there was another one called Minimax, about 13 million. I mean, there's still a lot, but not at this level of almost 30 million interactions, right? So this has happened in the past. Of course, Anthropic, every time they find it, they improve their anomaly detection. They try and figure out how they can make it more secure, because this is one of the things that people have been talking about, this model distillation, where people can use your model to learn the secrets that you're using. But then,
do you know how they do it though? As in, like, I mean, I not to put you on the spot because you may or may not know, but I'm not sure how do they use that information to then improve their own model and accelerate the learnings through another model?
yeah, I think I don't know the exact details, John, but it's feeding whatever the output of those specific questions that they have and bake it into the model patterns, right? So they ask specific questions, specific patterns, and then just feed that into the model itself. Perhaps
Right, so they're basically prompting. So they've got a load of specific tailored prompts that are then used as a mechanism to then obviously extract data in a format that then helps them with the model that then they can then accelerate their own training using the output of another model. Clever.
Correct. And yeah, that's correct. And
this feels like a sense of karma, isn't it? Isn't that called karma? Where you train a model based on other people's work, but you're not happy that somebody else trains their model on your model that was trained on other people's work. Just so I understand the slight hypocrisy here. So they're not happy that somebody else is getting ahead based on the data that they trained their model on, which obviously wasn't theirs. But they're not happy that somebody else does it to them. Is that what I'm hearing here?
That's exactly what you're hearing. That's exactly what some people are saying. They are saying that, well, isn't what Anthropic getting the taste of their own medicine because they've trained it on data that already exists, right? Of course, is open, but this comes under, John, of course, with all of these commercial things, fair usage policy, right? So this is protecting their IP to some extent, but because if you use fake accounts, bots or whatever, 25,000 of those, I think legally it does count as corporate espionage. But this is why Anthropic went to the Senate Banking Committee and the U.S. The Commerce Department to maybe put in some of these guardrails around to protect themselves. I think it's a bit more geopolitical than like technical, but that's what's happened. What do you think about all of this?
I just find it ironic. I mean, I don't know, it's ironic, but just hypocritical. Just the hypocrisy levels of when it happens to others, we're okay with that. When it happens to me, I'm really not okay with that. Like the double standards as a business, it does feel a little bit ridiculous that they have an issue with their own business potentially getting risked because they don't work for the state. The state hasn't got investment in Anthropic. It's not a government model, right? So it's a pure commercial risk, let's be honest, because there is no, you don't need to go to the US Senate for something that is a real commercial threat. Potentially it doesn't become a national threat because somebody can produce a model like yours. Because say the argument was that their Qwen model was on a par with Fable or Mythos, then what would they have done? Like, you wouldn't need to block because they've put the investment in, they've trained the model to the same standard, so it's just equal measure. So there's nothing to do, right, to Anthropic. Anthropic couldn't do anything in that situation where China's built a comparable model to them, right?
Yeah, but I think, John, they're also based on the back of this, the ban on this export control of Mythos and Fable shows that this is being treated the same way as other technology that's an export ban that doesn't get sold to every country, right? So this is where this is going. That Yes, the government is not involved, but the government sees the potential on what these models can be used. Don't forget that Anthropic are the ones who denied U.S. government usage of their models with the removal of guardrails, so they can use it for whatever they wanted to use it for, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same company, and then they went back on it. But here's the thing, though, John. If you compare these models, I was just looking at the cost of these models, right? I don't know. I've never used any of the Alibaba's Qwen models, but the Anthropic, if you just take Opus is $5 per million input tokens and $25 per million output tokens, right? And Mythos and Fable, of course, they were more expensive.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess how much Qwen is?
Oh, I mean, is it done in dollars? You've done it in dollars. You haven't like
I'm
changed
doing it dollars.
currency.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
changing it to yen or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good. I don't know. I guess what are we talking? Probably, and it'd be annoying if I'm right as well, which is kind of the risk, isn't it? That I fluke myself into the number. I'm going to say 10. $10.
$10. Okay. It's 5 cents per million input tokens.
Wow.
And 20 cents per million output tokens.
Why are we not using Qwen then? Why should we just switch to Qwen then? Do we need to? Why are we doing Anthropic then, Salman?
So what I'm telling you is that there are some models out there which are way more, because you could train based on other models. I don't know, because the market, the way they present themselves is that this is more affordable model to use. Of course, I've never checked the capabilities. There's a bunch of benchmarks out there that you can see. Always put Claude Opus to the top, but okay, fair enough. Claude is the best. Opus, the Opus models are the best at the moment. But do you need that? Maybe you can get away with Qwen. It's 5 cents, John. This is like 100 times cheaper than the models that we use every day.
But don't I mean, outside of like the cost, which is obviously ridiculous, that there's such disparity between the costs, but you're in a global economic situation, right? We've got globalization. Companies now have a global footprint. You got people in Europe using Anthropic, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a whole sovereignty thing going on, which we've mentioned several times.
Yeah.
So I think everybody's looking at everyone on the risk of not owning something. Especially a frontier model, where if for some reason that the adoption kind of goes through the roof and the ROI does start to get recognized, and then there is a disruption to employment, let's just assume that path gets taken. You don't own anything. All of that value is gone to a specific company. And that company has nothing to do with your country, right? It's not European tax. It's not going back into Europe or any European country. It's going into the States, and it's obviously grown the US economy. And so knowing that you're like in a globalized position and that you've got a competitor, Qwen, so that's then sneakily trying to accelerate its AI adoption. Is it a little bit more underhand? Is it like someone maybe taking steroids in the Olympics? Maybe it is a little bit like that.
But
John, they're all competing, at the end of the day, and you can't suddenly start, be okay on one hand. When we make the rules, it's okay.
Yeah.
And we're controlling the globe, that's okay. And so long as you follow our pattern, that's fine. But if you try and do it as well, that's kind of not okay, guys. It's not okay that you improve your money. It's not okay that you can monetize yours. Do you know what I mean? It just feels a little bit like that.
And you're charging 5 cents. What are you doing?
And you're charging 5 cents. Yeah, charging 5 cents is a bit outrageous. They can't make any money out of that, surely.
But John, it's the scale, right? So it depends how they train, how they run these models, and of course, here's the thing, though.
Sorry, just a quick one though on that. Does Alibaba Cloud have an open source model as well? Do they have they bothered with that, or they don't? They're just all commercial. I know, obviously, Yeah, I know you've got obviously some open source, but I don't think they do they?
At the moment, the only country that's doing doing a lot of open source model is China, right? So China's
Yeah.
like DeepSeek's coming out as open source. There's so many models that are coming
That
out.
was it. That's where the thread was. Yeah, DeepSeek was coming out as open source. You've obviously got Gemma as well, which is Google, isn't it?
And I have just fact checked, John, because we can do that with the use of internet. Qwen is most widely adopted open source AI families. So
That was it.
Open source.
I thought it was open source.
Qwen.
That's what I was asking.
You are right.
Yeah. So I guess the risk is then beyond commercial, because it basically means, well, if this local model, open source model, gets more widely adopted, then how do you make money? If it's on a par and you can run it yourself, then we're going to go out of business. So we need to stop it. So yeah.
Another thing is, right, so they caught this attack, but they caught it after the fact, right?
So you mean, has it already got better? So what you're saying is, John, we need to get Qwen. It's now.
We need to get Qwen, John. I'm telling you. It's basically
Qwen up.
Qwen
up right now. Let's go and get it. Yeah.
In Scooby-Doo, at the end of it, when they catch the perpetrator and they take the mask off, they take like the Qwen's mask off. Actually, underneath is just Opus. So I think that's what.
Underneath it,
it's one of them.
4.8, yeah.
So it's just Opus.
It'll be Mythos. That's the illusion, is because we don't know Mythos because we've never had access. The mask removes, and that is Mythos, and you actually see Mythos. Like Kaiser Soze.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing here is, John, yes, over time they've improved their anomaly detection, trying to figure out, because it's kind of hard to figure out these attacks and the patterns that they exist, so they can see how they catch these people, right? People who are doing this. But imagine all the other people who are getting away with distillation, right? All the other small scale. I'm not saying it's happening. Perhaps some of the other competitors also using distillation.
So guilty right now. That was the way you phrased that was like a real. It was like you really wanted to confess, but had to hold yourself back on the fact that you've got something going down. Is that what you've been up to?
Listen, I'm not going to say any of the SAL models that are going to come out. I'm not talking about any of that. You will find out later on. I'm just telling you, John. SAL AI.
Yeah, SAL AI.
SAL AI. I'm just telling you that this kind of attack is. But again, the model is there for the usage. If you stick within fair usage policy, you're learning from the teacher, John. Is that illegal?
Yeah,
I don't think
they learned from the best. They copied the model. They copied their model, and was like, "Oh, you can steal and train. Like, yeah, let's follow suit." I do think though somebody was using Qwen. That's why in the back of my mind, because I remember having a conversation around somebody was using the Qwen open source model for quite a lot of their coding, and then there was some internal discussions. Not to go off on too much of a tangent, but there's internal conversations around actually you could conserve your money by running something like Qwen to kind of get going to a certain extent. Say you were going to write some code or whatever you were going to do, you could use your local Qwen model, get it so far, to iterate to a certain point, and then use the polish and the rest of it, maybe like the getting it reviewed, making those changes with something then like Anthropic, so that actually you can kind of like save your costs by trying to get to a certain point, so you don't obviously hemorrhage tokens. And actually some people have already started to do that as a bit of a way of working, which is kind of interesting.
John, that's probably a very good topic to discuss at a future Cloud Unplugged.
Right. Okay, episode. I get it. I take the hint. Hint, Simon. That's all right.
How do we?
I'll drop that then. No, sorry. I'll drop that. Just for another time.
How do we efficiently use our tokens, right? Because you're absolutely right. It's all about the tokens, John. And if you can use a cheaper model, it's all about them tokens. I need to token max. So if we can use some of these cheaper models to do most of the groundwork, then of course why we can't polish it. I kind of do the same with Claude. I use Haiku, which is much cheaper than Opus to get going with a bunch of stuff, and then I switch over to Opus when Haiku starts to lag a little bit and it's not really doing what it's supposed to do, because the Claude models, they're not 5 cents per million input tokens, right, John? So I have to do something about that.
Yeah, but what about, I guess, moving on to MacBooks and the fact that they're going to cost 20% more. I mean, they weren't cheap. MacBooks are more on the expensive end of the price spectrum, but they're going to go up by roughly 15 to 25% this week, they said. All because of the AI demand. Obviously, the memory and the chips that are in your laptop also go into the AI servers. Now you've got the competition obviously happening on a shortage of like memory, etc. And that's obviously put the demand up, and obviously supply and demand, it's then made the costs higher, and therefore this is a trickle down into obviously the laptop market, or in this case MacBook. But what do you think about that? As in, now consumers are starting to feel the pinch on this AI hype.
Yeah, John, supply and demand, right? Because the hyperscalers are buying up all this memory that goes in not just MacBooks, by the way, it's also iPads, iPad
True.
Pros and all of them. Everything has gone up by like 20% of the cost. So the RAM hyperscalers are buying everything, right? So they're buying the GPU chips, they're buying the RAMs. So supply and demand, there's not enough memory available in the market for it to be put into these machines. It's costing a bit more money for Apple to build it. And the problem here is it's not just Apple. Pretty soon we'll see this trickle down into other devices too, and probably phones as well at some point. So unless the bubble bursts and people start realizing that AI bubble is expanding way more than it should, I think the price is just going to keep going up. So this is basically what we're doing, John. You and I, if we buy an iPad or a Mac, we're subsidizing the arms race. That's what we're doing. You and I, John. We are responsible for this.
The booze. Do you remember last time you were saying that they spoke to students, and obviously, with the job market and job market threat, and I think it was Eric Schmidt, wasn't it, or something, was doing his talk, and everyone was booing him every time he mentioned AI. And now, just the general public is going to start booing, because they'll be like, right, I'm going to get the new iPhone, or I'm going to go and get the new Mac, the MacBook, or I'm going to go and whatever device. And then they're going to realize it's like £300 or £400 more expensive than it was last year, and then they're going to be booing and being like, "Yeah, that's because of AI, mate." So
AI, they were like, "Well, you can use AI to create all the funny images that you wanted, but sorry, unfortunately, you're going to have to pay a bit more."
Exactly. Now you're feeling the pinch. Yeah, it's a bit crazy when it starts to hit consumers like that, as in like it's the trickle down effect that's kind of happening now because of the demand, and that's a little bit crazy, really. But
correct. I mean, the demand, like the trick. We also see the models themselves slightly over time they'll get more expensive. We've seen Copilot go into usage-based consumption, but that's okay because you are in the market for using the model, so you understand. Okay, I have to pay a little bit more.
Yeah.
But people who are buying iPads and laptops, they're not in the market for models. Not everybody, John. As much as you and I like to think, not everybody's using AI.
Exactly.
Right?
Do you know though how you can make your money back on all of this if you want to make some money? You're a content guy, so you can produce your content. You can now monetize it. You can now monetize your content, and you can make your money back. So all the AI bots that are scraping your content and stealing it, you can gate it now and get some payment. Get that money's coming in for all that content to pay for your new MacBook that the AIs was stealing to begin with, or maybe you're using AI to make the content that's then making your MacBook expensive to obviously create it. So then you've obviously got to get the money back to pay for it. So,
damn. You caught me. You caught me, John. You caught me.
It's an interesting time. Yeah. Interesting times in the money game. But yeah, sorry about that. A little bit of a cough. But Amazon, have also released something because they've been in New York talking about that. So I just thought it was a bit of a slight interlink between costs and money and things like that. I thought I'd weave that one in. So I guess really we need to get on Qwen ASAP, I think is the summary. Save your Anthropic money. Go and give it to Alibaba because they've pretty much stolen everything from Anthropic anyway. So you don't need to be spending all that cash now on Anthropic. You can now invest that into a 5 cents price point with using Qwen and save that cash so you can buy a MacBook.
Exactly. That money has to come from somewhere, John. The extra £200-300 has to come from somewhere. So might as well stop using the Opus models and use the Qwen models. I have used the DeepSeek models before. Absolutely fine, but I haven't used them in anger as much. Perhaps it's time for me to have a look into the Qwen models.
Yeah,
see
to be
how it
fair, I
goes.
haven't used. I do know people that have been, but yeah, I haven't used it either. Cool. So the next episode, I think we said though we were going to break down a story, and we've cheated and we've basically done news again. And I'm pretty sure in the last episode we said next episode we're going to, go deep on a topic, and then we've next episode arrives and we haven't. So apologies for that. That was been a bit short for time, but I think next time we are going to get into a very specific topic. I think we're talking about the trust of an AI agent and what goes into it, and how can you, from a security perspective, people are using it today. What does it really mean when you're giving it access to things that you have, and what's the imperative risk there to you? And then what does it mean to a business as well, when you have not just you as an individual, but your entire workforce all in mass using AI and connecting things up? And, is it quite a risky thing to just roll out, or are there ways of protecting it so you can get the value out of it? So that will be probably what we're going to discuss next time, all being well. No promises though, but that's where we want to be for the next episode.
Cool.
All right. Well, a bit short and sweet today, but we shall be back next week with a bit of a deep dive around agentic. Cool.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.